Because last night at the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, we witnessed a young man from Silver Spring, Maryland, a young man named Joshua Aaron Hart, be the man who in one moment destroyed the soul of a city. And I know there's a lot that happened last night, and we'll delve into it. And I know that Jalen Brunson deserves most of the credit, 90% of the credit. He's a god, he's a king, we all know that. But as I sat there on Revolutionary Row in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, as an independent basketball observer, I looked around. I saw a nervous Tommy Lugauer. I saw a bunch of creeps and animals from the city of Philadelphia, and I saw a bunch of New Yorkers. And while we may root for different teams, you are a New Yorker, and I love you. I love each and every one of you. And as I looked around and soaked in the moment, when Joshua Aaron Hart decided with 26 and a half seconds to go, and the Philadelphia 76ers said, we're going to give this to you. We're going to give this to you. We don't want Jalen Brunson beating us, but we invite you, Joshua Aaron. We invite you to have the balls to try to beat us. And Joshua Aaron Hart from Silver Spring, Maryland, said, go F yourself, Philadelphia. Dog. And he hit the shot that killed their soul. He hit the shot that advanced the New York Knicks to the Eastern Conference semifinals. Congratulations to all the Knicks fans out there. But, Tiki, you and I, we witnessed the death of a city. How does it make you feel?
We did witness it, and we'll get to some of the particulars of the death of the city, including an individual who decided that he wanted to harass us. Actually, more not me. More Sean.
No.
For his attire.
Well, let's
clarify.
Let's clarify. At 3:30 today, yes. I want everybody to set their alarms because there are specific stories that need to be talked about, including a person. A person was thrown out of Wells Fargo Center for threatening physical harm of Tiki Barber. That is a true story. That is not hyperbole. That's what happened. And coming up at 3:30, set your alarm, details on every little minutia detail on what transpired and what led to that incident last night at Wells Fargo Center.
It had nothing to do with me being a New York Giant.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I'm pretty positive.
Okay.
Here's the thing.
Go ahead.
That I have to say to New Yorkers.
Yes.
You did your job. You showed up. Now, it wasn't 50-50 like it was on Sunday in game 5 or 4. It wasn't 50-50. It was probably 70-30. Sean and I were trying to figure this out the whole game.
Yeah.
What is the divide here? Because it got loud for Philadelphia fans.
Sure.
It got loud for when out of somewhere, Buddy Hield turned into Buddy Hield from Oklahoma and knocked down 5 3-pointers in the first half. It got loud in there. But when it started to matter, like when the game started to get really tight, crunch time, as they like to call it in the NBA, the Philly fan was notably silent. And the New York Knicks fan, 30% of you, wherever you were sitting, 210 up there with Kerry and Josh, or Justin, he's sitting up there in the rafters where Evan was, or some of them were in the suites, like Sean and I were, because our suite was decidedly New York Knicks favorite. You guys showed up when it mattered most, and it made a difference. I really believe it made a difference on the road that arena started to skew Knicks, despite being the vocal minority. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Good job, New Yorkers.
You know what I noticed, and tell me if you felt this in the building last night? The Knicks fan on Revolutionary Row, we took over. And by we, I mean New Yorkers. I'm obviously not a Knicks fan, and I do feel like we are sort of responsible for that. We promoted Revolutionary Row. We told the Knicks fan, buy tickets up there. It's a cool place.
Right.
And it was a very, very cool place, but it was mostly Knicks fans.
It had a fireplace and everything.
It had a fireplace and everything. But it was mostly Knicks fans. But there were Sixer fans there, and here's what I noticed as an IBO. The Sixer fan knew. They knew their destiny. They knew how this was going to end. And the Knicks fan, including Tommy himself, who I give him a lot of credit for this, he always had confidence. Dude. And I think he represented most Knicks fans, that despite building this huge lead that disappeared in record time in the second quarter, he still believed. despite going down 10 mid-part of the third quarter, and I would get in his face. I was obnoxious. Are you nervous? Are you nervous? They still believed. The Knicks fan last night in Philly, and I think at home watching back here in New York City, they believed this team was going to find a way, and the Sixer fan didn't. And I also think we saw it from the players themselves. You know, I've made this comment that this series, which is one of the great series I've ever seen that hasn't gone 7, it's like a wrestling storyline. And what I mean by that, or a good soap opera, or a good movie, is that there's these little things throughout a series that tell you a story. But the question is, how's it going to end? And what I thought was beautiful, and I want to take you back to about a minute and a half to go in this game, as the Knicks were blowing a lead. They had an 8-point lead with 2.5 minutes to go. After OG Anunoby dunked on Joel Embiid, he missed a free throw. And the Knicks 8-point lead all of a sudden disappeared. Eventually, Philly tied it. But there was a moment in this game that told an incredible story. And I don't think this is getting enough credit, or I don't think you're thinking about it. And I want to bring attention to this because as an IBO, I saw one of the great wrestling storylines you'll ever see. The Knicks' lead was cut to 3 after Tyrese Maxey hit a circus shot off the glass. And Josh Hart had a wide-open 3 with 1:25 to go. And Josh Hart wouldn't take that shot. Josh Hart instead decided to put the ball on the floor, drive, and miss a floater. And right after that, Kelly Oubre dunk, Jalen Brunson got fouled, game-tying N1 with Tyrese Maxey on the goaltend. We know how the game got tied up. But Josh Hart was given an open 3, and he said no. And he said no because he probably didn't have the confidence, because he probably didn't believe in himself, because throughout this game, Josh Hart was 2 different Josh Harts. He's always hustled Josh Hart. He always gives a damn Josh Hart. But sometimes Josh loses confidence the way we all do as human beings. Early in this game, man, he had swagger. Then he was afraid. And with 1.5 minutes to go, I don't know if Josh will ever admit this, he didn't want any part of that wide-open 3 Philly gave him. And he took it to the basket, and he missed. And here we are, 5 minutes in real time later, with the freaking season hanging in a balance. And Nick Nurse, and I don't even blame Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse said, I won't let Jalen beat me. I'll let that guy from Silver Spring, Maryland beat me. Because you know what? He'll give it up. Just like he did a minute earlier.
And by the way, he tried to.
He thought about it.
He tried to.
He thought about it.
He got to the top of the key, and it's like, I'm going to get rid of this. Nah, you know what? I'm okay.
I'm going to take it.
Yes.
And he made it. Dog. And that, to me, there are so many things from this series. There's so many things from this game. We'll get to all of it. But to me, that was the perfect symmetry. And the reason why the Knicks won this series, there's a lot of reasons. Jalen played like a superstar. Sure, we all know that. To me, the biggest reason, besides Jalen being a superstar, is that Josh Hart went out there and made 18 threes over the course of a 6-game series. Because Josh Hart, when the moment mattered the most, was not tentative, was not afraid. He said, I'm going to win this basketball game, and he did. And here's the second part of the wrestling storyline that I loved. You know what allowed the 76ers to come back from 8 down with 2.5 minutes to go? There's a few things, but can I tell you something specific? The Knicks missed 2 big free throws. OG Anunoby after the dunk. We'll always think about the dunk. That's because history's written by the winners, and the Knicks won. But here's the facts. He missed a free throw.
Yep.
You know what happened a few minutes later? Jalen Brunson answered with that little Trae Young, I'm going to stick my ass into you. Gets the bucket, misses a free throw. And when the Knicks, after Josh Hart made the 3, game wasn't over, obviously, but Tom Thibodeau decided, I'm going to make this a free throw contest, unlike Game 4. But the only way that works is if you make your free throws. And the perfect end to this story, this incredible story, was Dante DiVincenzo and Jalen Brunson, the Philly guys, went to the free throw line. They didn't think about it. They didn't pause. They didn't Giannis it. They didn't hesitate. They nailed all 4. If they miss one free throw, everything's different. And so to me, the perfect end to a story is the ending that makes sense. Josh Hart having the balls and the gumption to take that shot and make that shot is one, and the Knicks, who's missed free throws, allowed Philly to come back. Down the stretch, went 4 for 4. And ladies and gentlemen, that's why your dudes and dogs are going to the Eastern Conference semifinals.
Damage. Right. I don't know if they're going to do damage, Loogie, but they're there. Now, Dante DiVincenzo deserves some kudos here because Dante hit 5 of 9 or 8. 5 of 9. 5 of 9 3-pointers. You mentioned this on the show yesterday. There's one guy who's got to get going early just to get Jalen Brunson some rest.
Yeah, they got him about 2 minutes of rest.
Exactly. They got him about 10 seconds more than they did in Game 5.
Right.
So it was DiVincenzo. And the last 2 games, 3 games really, he had been a shell of what we needed or expected him to be. So 2 things. Not only did he come out on fire, knocking down 3-pointers, hitting open shots, being a dagger early. That's why they built that 33-11 lead early in the game. But secondly, and probably more importantly, and I when I saw it, I questioned it. Mm-hmm. Why is he on Tyrese Maxey?
Because he was apparently going to lock him down for 40.
And why is not Deuce McBride on Tyrese Maxey? And Dante locked his ass up.
He did.
I almost didn't believe the scoreboard when I looked at it in the third quarter. And you look up there and you see Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid felt like he made every shot, especially in the early going of the game. First 9 points was all Joel Embiid. So you see Joel Embiid with 30-something points. It's like, okay, you just click down the numbers a little bit and you see Tyrese Maxey and it's got a 2 next to it.
Yeah.
And it's shocking to me.
He did an amazing job for the first 3 quarters of that game.
Unbelievable job. And so to me, the reason this Knicks team has a chance now. Luke, Sean and I were watching this game, and at points, this Knicks team stinks. Dude, God, they're playing like college basketball right here. This is ugly. And they went through some lulls, especially when the second unit was on the floor. They couldn't generate a point. They couldn't catch a cold of a point if they were naked in Siberia. It was bad basketball. It was bad.
Right.
But they always find ways.
That's it, man.
There's something about this team where they always find ways, and they do it differently every single game.
Well, that's why.
Every game is different.
That's why I know when a game occurs, there's in your mind, it's like, well, if that happens again, then this has to happen. Nothing happens over and over again other than Jalen Brunson dominating since Game 3. Everything's different.
But it's almost, I don't want to say boring because it's spectacular what he's doing, but it's almost expected that Jalen Brunson's going to score 40 points.
Well, they basically need him to, yeah.
Right. But he does.
Yeah.
And so it's almost, okay, let's give that. You don't even need to, I mean, you talk about it because it's one of the great Knick performances in the postseason that you ever seen. In fact, it's one of the great in NBA history that you've seen in the first round with his 40 points in 3 straight games and 10 assists. Michael Jordan was the last person that did that. I mean, he's been unbelievable. But it's the role guys in different facets every game that tell me that like there's a preparation that goes into being successful in anything in life, but especially in sports. Like there's a prep that goes into it. There is an execution. There is an ownership of the process. I'm not using that to troll Philly, but if it is trolling Philly, good luck. I mean, good riddance. But right, there's an ownership that has to take place from a player standpoint. Coach Thibodeau can say all he wants. All right, this is what we got to do. This is what we got to do. His other assistant coaches got to coach it up. This is what you got to do. This is what you got to do. If you don't own it as a player and know it like backwards and forwards, you're going to mess it up when you try to execute it. The one thing I notice about this Knicks team is that every one of these guys owns everything. They own it. It's why they don't, when they make mistakes, it doesn't crush them. Because they know what they did wrong.
Right.
I often go and I give these conversations, these speeches to people. And the one thing I always say is that preparation is the biggest key because I don't know is not a good enough answer to what happened. Right? Someone, hey, what happened, dude? I don't know. Then you're not the right guy. I don't think anybody on this Knicks team will stand up and say, oh, I don't know what happened. I think they know exactly what happened, and it's why they're able to fix it.
Yeah, and it's also
why they're able to win.
You don't make the same mistake twice. Right. So when Joshua Aaron Hart hit that 3, the New York Knicks knew we're not giving them any kind of look to tie this game. And we'll trust that our guys will hit free throws.
Because exactly what happened in Game 5.
Because they learned from Game 5. And I think what's so impressive about what the Knicks did in this series, and I know they did this throughout the regular season, but it's so different when you do it on the stage of the postseason, is every time they got punched in the face, they responded. And when you think about Game 6 in a lot of ways was the microcosm of everything they've done this season.
Right, it was schizophrenic, the game.
Right, but they responded because when they build a 21-point lead early, and I'm sitting there thinking, wow, they're going to run him out of the building. And I said it to Loogie. I'll own what I said to him. Wow, you guys are going to dominate them. And then the Sixers respond, and they respond in such a historic way that they actually had a lead going to halftime, which seemed like impossible. And then the Sixers build a 10-point lead in the third quarter.
Where it felt like they were going to run the Knicks out of the building.
Completely. And the Knicks responded to that. And that's why sometimes over the course of a 48-minute basketball game, one thing that deeply offends me as a basketball fan is when someone says I only have to watch the last 2 minutes.
Well, then, in the regular season, you probably can get away with that.
Maybe you can, but then you miss a lot. And then you miss the moments that matter. And I will tell you something about Game 6. There was a moment in the middle of the third quarter that I could argue was one of the most important moments outside of the obvious final 2 minutes. When that lead got to 10 and Philadelphia's rocking and they're starting to believe. And I went right to Loogie. Are you nervous? Are you nervous? Before I could finish getting the words out of my mouth, Dante DiVincenzo hit a three. And all of a sudden, a game that was teetering, a game that easily can go from 10 to 12 to 16 to 20, went right back down to 7. And the Knicks defense stepped up, and they got stops. And before you know it, a game again that could have teetered is a 4-5-point game. And I think Dante DiVincenzo, besides the great start, besides the free throws down the stretch, in the middle part of the third quarter, he made a three that changed everything because the Knicks always respond. Dude. And in Game 6, they always responded. And that's why ultimately here we are, ladies and gentlemen. There is no Game 7 on Saturday. There's a Game 1 on Monday. And if you're a Knicks fan, congratulations. Let's go Knicks. And Loogie will tell you, as I left the Wells Fargo Center last night, I must have used that word, congratulations, 100 times. I shook your hands. I gave you fist bumps because no troll, no joke. I know how you feel. I understand what it's like to be a fan of a tortured fan base. And while I don't get many moments to feel the glory of victory, I've had it a few times, and I know how good it feels when you walk out of someone's building knowing that you put your feet up, that you took over, and you ended their season. I've told you one of my great sports moments is Gillette Stadium, Jets-Patriots. For maybe 5,000 people, maybe a few more, what you witnessed last night at Wells Fargo Center when you went down there, that's got to be a top sports memory. You went into their building, Philadelphia, and you put your feet up, and you celebrated.
And when it was over, they left quick.
They left quick. And then you put jerseys on Wilt Chamberlain, and you chanted things. And so there was a moment where I looked around at you people, and mostly I don't like you very much, right? I'm jealous of you. I admit that.
Come on, you can get on the bandwagon for a day, Evan.
Well, let's go Knicks. Here's the only
You were a New Yorker yesterday. I don't care if you were a Knicks fan. You were a New Yorker. And ultimately, that's what mattered.
Well,
because the rivalry between the cities, it's going to get deeper and deeper and deeper, especially after we tell you these stories.
I can't wait, because I've purposely kept my knowledge away from how someone tried to physically assault Tiki Barber and got ejected from Wells Fargo Center. But we'll get that answer at 3:30. But you are right that while I was congratulating Knicks fans while leaving Wells Fargo Center, I looked at the Philly fan. I looked into their eyes. And yes, we saw the death of a season, and we saw the death of a process. And we saw the death of a rivalry city because Philly's gotten the upper hand a lot on us. They really have. They've gotten the last laugh a lot when it comes to football. And that's not troll, that's real. They've gotten a lot of last laughs against us as Met fans. They've been in the World Series. They've been in the LCS. They've invaded our buildings at times over the last couple of years. No one will ever forget 2007. So they've got a lot of laughs on us. But last night, you spit on them, New York. You put your feet up, and you watch them die in front of your eyes. And as I left Wells Fargo Center, and I looked around, and I looked at the death of a city, I ain't gonna lie to you, I did have a half a smirk. Just a tiny one.
Yes.
Just a tiny one. As I saw them crying and moaning and bitching and whining.
Right.
And I remembered, they're Philadelphians. They're 18,000 Spike Eskins. As I thought about that, it was like, all right, okay.
You mean figuratively spit on them, not literally.
No, not literally.
That's part of the story, by the way.
Wow. Well, we have a lot to get to, and we will hear from you, whether you are at home in your house and home in New Jersey, Connecticut, or New York, or you are brave like us to invade the city of Philadelphia and come out with victory. The toll-free number is 877-337-6666. We will hear what happened with Tiki Barber and a Philly fan that resulted in the Philly fan leaving in handcuffs. I promise you, coming up at 3:30 today. Plus, if you think I take a lot of shots at Philly fans, guess who else took a direct shot at Philly fans verbally? That's right, Joshua Aaron Hart himself. We'll get to that later as well. And, of course, you, the Knicks fan, on this Victory Friday, 877-337-6666.